Hi there, I'm Em. Welcome to the Professionals Recovery Room. Let me ask you something. Have you ever said yes and then immediately felt your stomach drop? Or agreed to something at work and then spent the next 3 days being resentful? Have you ever told yourself, it's fine, I can handle it, even though you were already exhausted? If so, you likely have a boundary issue. And what's interesting is that when you're burned out, your boundaries tend to erode further. Okay, let's go with me here. We'll start with some science. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Occupational Health Psychology found that employees with poor boundary control between work and personal time experience significantly higher emotional exhaustion and reduced recovery capacity. Another 2022 study in Frontiers in Psychology showed that perceived lack of autonomy, which includes boundary control, is strongly associated with burnout symptoms and decreased job engagement. So, in simpler terms, when you don't feel like you can control what comes at you, your nervous system never stands down. Research consistently shows that perceived lack of control increases cortisol and emotional exhaustion. So if your day feels like constant incoming demands, your brain doesn't categorize that as busy. It categorizes it as unsafe. And when your system feels unsafe, it doesn't fully recover, even when you're not at work. It just doesn't shut off. So let's pivot just a little bit and talk about what boundaries are. I did talk about this in more detail in season 1, but just to simplify for now, boundaries are a decision about what you will and will not carry. It's a line that protects your time, your energy, and your mental bandwidth. It's a filter that determines what enters your calendar or your nervous system. Boundaries are not aggressive, and they are most definitely not dramatic. A true boundary sounds like, I can't take that on this week, or I'll need until Thursday to deliver that. Or again, possibly, I'm not available after 5, but I can address it tomorrow morning first thing. When it's a boundary, it's clean, it's not emotional, and it's definitely not defensive. It's really just about being clear. Okay, so we have an idea of what boundaries are, but let's talk a little bit about what boundaries are not. Boundaries are not controlling other people. They're not forcing someone to agree with you. They're not punishing someone. And they're not explaining yourself excessively. And this is important for high performers. Over-explaining is not a boundary. It's anxiety trying to protect you. When you say, I'm so sorry, I just have so much going on. I hate to do this, but that's not being clear about a boundary. That's a fear of disapproval. Because when you over-explain, you're trying to manage someone else's reaction. A boundary doesn't manage reactions. It manages access to your time, to your energy, and to your capacity, so you can perform at your best. And here's something high performers don't always realize. The more depleted you are, the harder it is to hold a boundary, because boundaries require emotional regulation. They require clarity. They require internal stability. And burnout quietly reduces all three. When you're burned out, you're more approval seeking. You're more conflict avoidant. You're operating from depletion. And your nervous system is in survival mode. So instead of protecting your energy, you manage perceptions. You try to stay likable. You try to avoid tension. And slowly you overextend, and that resentment builds. Then exhaustion deepens. Then you think something is wrong with you. But there's not. Your boundary muscle is just underdeveloped from overuse and underprotection. And that's a skill, which means that can be rebuilt. So in part 2 of this episode, we're going to focus on retraining your boundary muscle because recovery happens through small, safe action. I'll show you how to identify one low-risk situation and how to communicate a boundary without over-explaining or escalating. I'll see you there.